Truly, whoever can make you believe in absurdities can make you commit atrocities. That quote by Voltaire is often used by atheists to point out the dangers of religious dogma. The idea is that if you set aside reason and logic when evaluating truth claims, you'll be robbing yourself of that most important tool when it comes to deciding how to act. More generally, we can say that if you set aside sound decision-making, you run the risk of otherwise unwanted outcomes. But as an atheist, I'm often told that not believing in God is the absurd position, and that some of the things that I do as a result of my non-belief, including shows like this, are harmful or even atrocious. So if we both agree that absurdities and atrocities are to be avoided, then it seems we have some basis for common ground here. And common ground is a great place to begin a meaningful conversation. If you believe in a God and want to have a meaningful conversation, then you are exactly the kind of person we're looking for. So give us a call. Let's talk, because the show is starting right now. All right. Welcome, everyone. Today is March 30th, 2025. This is Talk Heathen, and I'm your host, Scott Dickie, and joining me today is the ubiquitous Jimmy Jr. Jimmy, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm feeling good. Ubiquitous, huh? Existing everywhere at once. That's my favorite word.
Yeah.
I'm doing great, man. Thank you. I'm happy to be existing here with you today. So,
all right.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Talk Heathen is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. Talk Heathen is a live call-in show, and we have open lines as we speak. So get your calls in at 512-991-9242 or from your computer at tiny.cc/callth. So, Jimmy, before we get the show rolling here, there was one thing I wanted to comment, and that was the thumbnail that we had that we have for the show here. It shows kind of a picture of you and me, kind of duking it out or getting ready to duke it out. And I just wanted to, go ahead and say what you were going to say.
No, I acknowledge. I remember that you and I, last time we were at the Bat Cruise, had to be kind of restrained because we have some beef. After you said that you would never work with me again, after the last time we hosted together, I felt like I don't know. We had to capture our emotion towards each other. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
They made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and so I had to come back. But I just wanted to comment. There's two reasons that I like that photo. One is that it kind of, not very well, but kind of hides the fact that you're just way more muscular than I am. And so it if you look at the image,
credit.
it kind of masks that. I am giving myself a little bit of credit in that judgment there. But the best thing about it is that it clearly shows just how much more hair I have on my head.
You better be careful, because two she-bears are going to come out of nowhere and rip you to shreds.
That's true. Although I'm not a Ute, so that might not apply.
Yeah.
I don't know if that only applies to youths, but I don't know. We'll see. I'll have to keep my eye out for a she-bear here.
If I have to be bald and be me, I'd rather do that than have hair and be you.
All right. Oh boy, we're off to a scrappy start here on Talk Heathen today.
I'm just kidding. I couldn't be happier, Scott. I consider you a good friend of mine.
Definitely. Yeah.
Do you know? My wife mentioned to me the other day, we were talking about getting a new mattress, and she goes, do you know what me and I'm not going to say your wife's name, but do you know what me and so did when you and I were in the studio filming and having fun? Our wives were together.
That's right. Yeah, they went out shopping.
They were mattress shopping, and they were jumping on beds and testing beds out. I was like, man, what a fun time. So anyway,
that's what happens when atheists come together, right? It's just anything can go, anything happens. Yeah. So cool. So awesome. Yeah. So before we get to calls here, and I want to encourage people to go ahead and call in if you want to. We do have some lines open. But before we do that, I want to go talk about our Talk Heathen to Me segment. And to do that, let's bring in our guest host this week, Kelly Laughlin. Kelly, how you doing today?
It's me, the amazing, stupendous, wonderful Kelly.
That's right. Exactly.
That was good, Jimmy? All right, cool.
I had to. We got on to Kelly for constantly using self-deprecating humor, and we're like, dude, be a little bit more supportive of yourself. And so that was wonderful.
Thanks.
Yep, that was awesome. That was awesome.
So, moving on. Last week, we asked you, finish the joke. 3 wise men walk into a stable, and here are our top 3 answers. Johnny and Katie had a really, really hard time choosing because there was a lot of awesome answers. That said, here are the 3 that we actually chose. Number 3, Godwin7 says, 3 wise men walk into a stable and said, do you understand how challenging it is to follow a star up in the sky and then stop directly beneath it?
It's got a point.
Yeah.
I'm glad they were pointing out the inconsistencies in the Bible when the Bible was being written or before it. You know, just how ridiculous does this sound? Oh.
And number 2 from Fur, P-H-E-R, 3 wise men walk into a stable and they saw 3 wise women that had already arrived, presenting gifts of diapers, formula, and casseroles.
That's good.
Touche.
That is good. We actually bring the stuff that they need, right? And our number 1 answer comes from Colin Matz, and it's 3 wise men walk into a stable, and the author says, I said a fable. And the prompt for next week, this is going to be a good one. What exactly did God think Adam needed help with? How about you guys? You got answers? I got a pretty good one. Jimmy, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Have you guys ever heard the saying, 3-leaf shiny, don't wipe your hiney? So I think Adam was the first recipient of poison ivy when using the bathroom. And so God probably recognized, oops, I didn't give him instructions on that. And I hear that saying comes directly from Genesis. It might have been removed at the Council of Nicaea, but
I think it was a translation issue, and it's just a big, it was a big deal, and so they just decided to drop it, I guess.
Yeah, but it's funny, Kelly. When you were on Truth Wanted the other night, were you guys talking about how Adam was created, right? But he was created, and he looked like he was 20 years old, but he was really only a few minutes old. He probably needed a lot of instructions with a lot of things, right? So I don't know.
Scott, what's your answer?
I think that God created Eve because Adam needed help loading the dishwasher correctly. I think he just couldn't do it. He couldn't do it, and God was like, fine. Go show him how to do it. So that's what I think was the deal.
Well, I thought the obvious answer was that Adam needed God to help him beat women. But my second
to help him beat women or to meet women?
To meet women.
Okay, all right.
Right?
Oh.
To meet. Sorry if I said that wrong. And then my second answer, kind of Jimmy already got it, and it was he needed help learning what the difference between a fig leaf and a poison ivy leaf. So
you don't want to mix that one up.
Yeah.
Say, before we move on, though, I had an answer for the previous week's one, so I want to throw that in there. I know I'm too late to be, to be part of the official judging, but so finish the joke. 3 wise men walk into a stable genius, and they are immediately fired, arrested, and deported back to the East. So that was my take on that one. Slightly different, slightly off skew on that one, but
I'm surprised I didn't hear 3 wise men walk into a bar and say, or whatever it was, a stable, and say, can I have a minute to talk to you about your car insurance? Or we've been trying to talk to you. We've been trying to reach you about your car insurance.
Just 15 minutes can save you money. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Kelly. I think we'll bring Kelly back in the show later on, but for now, we'll set him off to the side there. Thanks, Kelly. All right. And before we dive into some calls, again, we still have some open lines here, so feel free to call in. We'd love to talk to you, especially if you're interested in having a meaningful conversation. But before we do that, I want to let's take a look at the crew, right? The show couldn't. Moderators, note takers, call screeners, all that stuff. Thank you so much for the crew. We really love all the support that you're giving us, and you make Jimmy and I look so awesome when we're on the air. It's just it's good to have that kind of support. Speaking of Jimmy, though, I mentioned at the beginning of the show that you were ubiquitous, right? And so I understand that you've been doing some modeling recently. and I was able to get my hands on an image of some modeling that you did. Crew, why don't you show us that image there?
Oh, man, I didn't know this was being shared with you.
Right. Yeah, right. So there's a little bit of a backstory. I won't be too long with it here, but I run this D&D campaign, Dungeons and Dragons, and it's just all ACA people playing. And so I have other ACA cast and crew members come in and do like voiceovers and stuff for some of the background characters. And so Jimmy was kind enough to do a voiceover for this gnome wizard character, and that was the image that we came up for Jimmy's character. So what I was thinking, and he provided an awesome audio clip, and so I was thinking we could use that audio clip today for our super chat challenge. And so if we get, I don't know, what do you think, Jimmy? It's your stuff here, so I'll let you set the bar here. What do you think is going to be our threshold here for super chats today?
Well, I'm going to go real easy on people because I really want to share this. So what do you think about $5 super chats? I mean, is that reasonable?
Well, I think we could, that'll pretty much guarantee, I hope that we'll get the audio. Let's say, 10 $5 chats,
10 $5 or $50.
Okay, 50. Let's do that. $50 minimum, right? If we go over that, then we will show the awesome gnome wizard audio that Jimmy Jr. provided. The character's name was Jim Jammer Jr. And so we'll get to hear from Jim Jammer Jr. If you want to hear Jimmy talking like a gnome, throw a few bucks our way, and maybe we can make that happen.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we do have a caller in the queue right now, so we'll talk to Unirock. I hope I'm getting that name correct. Unirock him from Ohio. Let's bring Unirock in. All right, Unirock, can you hear us? Am I saying your name correctly there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah, actually, hello. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well today. How about you?
Great.
All right. So you wanted to talk about atheism as a religion or something like that? Why don't you give us your thoughts on that?
Okay. I just clicked your show. I think I subbed like years and years ago, and it was a poll, I guess, at the top of the chat. And your moderator, I said, well, yeah, I believe it can be a religion. Can be. Not that it is for every atheist. And so your moderator talked me into calling you.
So in this instance here, what are you calling a religion? How would you define a religion? What criteria are you using to say that atheism could be a religion?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me tell you what I am real quick. I was an atheist on YouTube, obviously, or I wouldn't have used a crazy name like Unirock. They did a lot of debates in Discord and such. And then maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, I became a Christian. So I'd been atheist my whole life, became a Christian. In order, I think, for an atheist, for it to be a religion for someone is when, so you have atheists that aren't religious, as in, they kind of just float through life, and if someone asks them if they believe in God, they'll give you the whole, no, I don't. Are you an atheist? Yeah, I guess. I wouldn't call that a religion. But I do think that when you have a person that instead of admitting that we really have no clue, truthfully, how the universe started, or we really have just, no clue when it comes to, a lot of different details about religion. I think that it becomes a religion when instead you confirm that the Big Bang happened with no room or a majority of room for being wrong, and you confirm the details that lead somebody to, let's say, if I'm saying this correctly, sorry, I'm on my walk, so it's hard for me to breathe here, but I'm making it. So when, in the very end, if you replace God or the and it doesn't have to be someone who just, let's say, thinks that it might be, like if you're an atheist and you have room for God, I would say it's not a religion for you. But for someone who's let's say, using atheism in a very, let's say, confident way, I would say it could be a religion for that person. If you know what I'm saying.
Are you saying that religion then is you call it a religion if a person is in a situation where they believe something with no room for being wrong? Is that kind of what you're saying here?
No. I might have said that to be I left a little bit out. I'm a Christian, so I can tell you my religion. When I was an atheist,
I just wanted to know, what do you mean by religion? That's what I was looking for first. So before we continue on with the discussion.
Religion would be your idea of, let's say, whether God exists or not, and if you worship or if you back up those ideas in a confident way. Like if I say, I don't know if Jesus died on the cross, I don't know if that's my religion, but if I tell you, yes, Jesus died on the cross, it's a religion. That's my interpretation. So you could convince me otherwise, that's my interpretation.
So are you saying then it's a religion if it takes a position on the existence of a God, and then it also expresses confidence or worship or something?
You devote your time to it. You devote your energies to it and your defense of it, I think, then it does, yes.
Okay, so let's say that I really am a big fan of the infield fly rule, and I refuse to listen otherwise. Is that a religion or is that not? If I'm confident that having the infield fly rule is the best thing for baseball, and I've no room for thinking on that.
No, that's a good point, but I think that because it doesn't involve your opinion and dedication to whether God exists or not and where we generated from, if you get what I'm saying. So I would say no, that wouldn't qualify then. But if it did include those things and you were devout to those things, that's why I use the qualifier that someone who leaves a lot of room to say, well, we have the Big Bang. Like when I was an atheist, if someone said, do you believe in the Big Bang? I would say, well, I think it's possible for an excuse for what happened, but no, I don't believe in it, or I don't give confidence to it. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. So what about things like
makes a big deal?
What about things like Buddhism or the Jedi Masters or Dudism or stuff like that? Are those involve a commitment to I don't want to say a worldview, but commitment to a set of tenets, maybe, or a commitment to some kind of approach or approach to life or view of life, but don't necessarily have a God view. So you would say Buddhism does not qualify as a religion under your definition, since it doesn't address God?
Well, that's a good question, and let me strengthen what I'm saying a little. Let's say if they were devout to it above everything else in their life, while, let's say, adopting extreme, I think, thinking. I don't think Buddhism where you adopt extreme thinking from what I've studied of it, or I could be wrong. But then again, I'm just a dummy with my own opinion, so you'd have to inform me if you have a different thought of Buddhism.
So did we land on Buddhism was or was not? I mean, or you're saying it depends on their level of commitment, right? So if they hold the
level of commitment, I think the Buddhists who are devout, if they are devout, I would use that word maybe as the qualifier. It could be a religion to them, sure. That is, and let me give you a little bit of like a sentence that might help you understand where I'm coming from. Have you heard of the term of a religious idol?
I've heard the term, yeah,
I'm sure you
religious
have, right?
idol. So it's just kind of kind of physical manifestation or some kind of piece of artwork or something like that, or something that represents maybe a figure or a scenario.
I'm sorry if I interrupt, but no, you're right. But to the person, to us, it's an idol. But to the person that worships that idol or religion where that idol came from, it is something much more than, what you described it as. So to that person, their religion would be from that idol. You see what I'm saying? That kind of helps you get to an idea of where I'm coming from, I think.
So I have a question. So, hey, what's going on, Unirock? This is Jimmy. And so
hey, good to meet you.
Yeah, you too. On that note, so you gave first an example, a definition of religion, and it included God and a worldview that regarded where the universe came from, or considered where the universe came from.
Yeah.
Then to expand on it, you said, well, it doesn't necessarily need to be that. It could be a devotion to something that goes above everything else in their life, which I would agree with.
Too.
If we're defining religion, I would say that maybe a religion doesn't have to necessarily have a God. We have religions out there that qualify as religions, and
agreed.
And there's no God really involved. So let me ask you this. The Philadelphia Eagles, just won the Super Bowl. And there are a significant amount of rituals involved for many people in that, just like we have rituals in other religions. They wake up, they get prepared by wearing their favorite garb. They have feasts before the big event, which could maybe even be considered the main holy day of that religion, if you can consider that a religion. They paint their faces, they cheer for their favorite people, and then they're so devoted that even after winning, the devotees go and set fire to cars and flip them over and rain hell on the city. Is that a religion?
Great question. And in my perspective, of course, subject to argument that changes it, but in my perspective now, yes, if those people who are taking that thing that seriously, if that is the thing that they devote their life to above all else, it would have to be an extremist, in my opinion, because I think I am an extremist now that I've accepted Christ.
All right, so let me ask you this then. Does that qualify atheism as a religion? Because I can tell you, from my perspective, that being an atheist, all that I'm doing is saying the accounts of God that have been presented to me don't make sense to me, and therefore I reject them. But I am not so devoted to the idea.
It wouldn't be a religion to you.
No, hold on. Okay, so
Absolutely. Go ahead, please.
But the thing is, you're coming up with this idea, this possibility of it existing for somebody to be so devoted to atheism that they do the things that I just described, or that maybe Christianity has taken part in. But I don't know of anyone, and I've been an atheist for a long time, and I've been a member of the Atheist Community of Austin for several years now. I don't know anybody who does that.
Yeah.
I mean, can you give me an example of one atheist that? Hold on one sec. Hold on.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of one atheist that demands that their ways of thinking be implemented into government, or that other people who don't follow the way that they think should even be, I don't know, targeted, burned alive,
converted.
Yeah, or I mean, I don't know atheists doing that. I just know atheists saying, I reject the idea of the religion and the God that you have presented, and therefore I don't really have any good reason to believe. And while we're at it, please don't make my children believe it, and please don't try and force me to believe it through legislation. So yeah. I mean, you laugh, but that's why I'm here, and that's why Scott's here. No, I'm
not laughing at you. I'm laughing because I agree with you, and it's neat to hear you say it that way.
Well, I'm glad that you agree, and I think my thing is, like, I understand where you're coming from, because once you assign like a higher level of devotion to something, it can be kind of your way of life. But in the same sense, it doesn't make it a religion. I'm here doing activist work with my friend Scott and Kelly, and we want to make sure that everybody has a fair shot at life, period. define that how you want. I'm using very broad terms, but add to that what you want, whether it's opportunity, whether it's education, whether it's just not having to live in a stress or tension filled world. And so I don't think it makes it a religion for me. And I don't know any atheists that fit the criteria
I would agree.
You're laying out. So that's my defense. And I'll kick it back over to Scott.
Let me answer your question real quick so I don't lose it, if you don't mind.
Please.
Go for it.
So I'll give you an example of a atheist who did that, and it was me when I was around, let's say, when I first became an atheist, which was 14 to maybe 17 in school. And I had a fundamental misunderstanding that, of everything. I was a teenager. I'll just say it that way. So I kind of grasped atheism as, I didn't at the time, I wouldn't have admitted it to you then, but my older self looks back and says, you were treating atheism as your religion the way that you treated people of other quote unquote faiths or non-faiths. Because I wasn't nice to Christians when I argued with them or whoever, mainly Christians. And as I got my channel on YouTube and Discord, I started to treat, in the very beginning, some people that way online, but very quickly got schooled by some smart people. And another thing I wanted to throw in there, I think you said Austin, the Atheist Community in Austin. Is that where you guys are from?
That's the organization that produces the show. Yeah.
Okay.
Jimmy and I are both remote hosting here, but yeah.
So, I wouldn't think either of you, the way I've interacted with you, I don't think I'd characterize you that way at all. But there are people out there that fit the bill, in my opinion. Now, when I became a Christian a couple of years ago, this is when I started to hold this belief, and it was because I was then educated on, like, from the baseline, like as experiencing it, the difference between being an atheist and being a believer in a religion. And I realized that the things that are at the base of the mind that matter when you worship God, when you obey Christ, I do believe are replaced by an extreme non-believer in the way that I was arguing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think to some extent, Unirock, I agree with you. But let me ask you this. Do you think when somebody says that they're an atheist, do you think that they are referring to the way that you're defining religion, or do you think that they mean something else? Because when I say that I'm an atheist, I just mean I don't believe in a God. And to be honest, it's certainly not the word religion that I have an issue with. And it's not even religion in general that I have an issue with. And I don't know if I can speak for anyone else, but for me, the problem is having good reason to believe what you believe. And so in this case, it just so happens that religion happens to fall into that category. If somebody were to have a reasonable argument to support their religious beliefs, then I wouldn't have a problem with that. And I haven't seen that. I haven't been on this show all that long, but I've been watching the show for a very long time, and I've never seen, and other shows as well, and I've never seen anybody make a good argument. I've seen people give things that they say are good arguments and that they maybe even believe are good arguments, but I think that I can show how they're not actually good arguments. So that's the problem that I have. It's not so much what we call, it doesn't matter to me what we call religion. I mean, that's kind of my approach. I know some people like to argue about definitions of words and things, but for me, it's more the concepts that are the issue. And if somebody has a reasonable belief in something, then that's okay with me. But, like Jimmy was saying, if you do hold some of these religious beliefs, or more importantly, if you do hold any beliefs that are not reasonable and not rational, then I don't want you teaching that to my kids as fact, and I don't want you pushing our society in that direction. I don't want you basing laws off of that kind of thing. And so, and I don't mean to this is not intended to be insulting or anything like that, but I think that the distinction that you're making with the word is almost a petty distinction. But I'll say at the same time, I think that it's important to talk about those things. It's important to talk about what we mean when we say things. But I think then once you do that, then focusing on the words themselves, some people might call me an agnostic. Some people will call me an atheist. I happen to call myself an atheist. It's not too much that's not the big deal. It's not the words that are attached to me that I have a problem with. It's the concepts that I think are important. What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you. Yes. Well, number one, only because it's the most important response, it's not chronological to what you were saying. I think I can make a great argument for Christ. That
I think we just identified part two of our call here, but sorry, go ahead and continue.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, I interrupted you. Sorry, go ahead.
You guys sometime.
Okay.
You still talking to me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I apologize. There's a little bit of a delay and I interrupted you. Fine. And so, yeah, please go ahead and say what you were saying.
You're fine. Yeah, let me finish real quick because I know it's your show and I'm taking up a lot of time. But I would be able, I think, to make a very rational argument about Christ to you, not other religions. And number two, though, when you said two things and then you said laws, I disagree with. I am a Army veteran, and I believe in our Constitution and our government to an extent. And I agree that we shouldn't force religious beliefs on anyone. They should come to that determination themselves. In fact, any Christian that tries to force somebody would be missing the entire point, and they really don't know their own teachings. But when it comes to laws, because the laws of Christ are nothing but benevolent, I wouldn't mind that being affected by religion. But other than that, and that's my response, I apologize.
May I, Scott? I have
definitely. Please do. Please do.
Things. All right. So, I want to kind of. You said a few things. I made some notes, and I want to address them. So, first of all, I don't know that you necessarily need to respond to this first point, but feel free. You said you discovered atheism at age 14 to 17, and you treated your atheism like a religion, but you were kind of an asshole to people. I mean, is that an accurate summation of what you said?
Well, that's the best way to shortly describe it. But yes, I would say you're on point there.
I think
I tried to push it on other people and tell other people they were wrong.
I know. And all of us go through that. Most of us, I shouldn't say all of us, but many of us have what's called the angry atheist phase. And we talk about it a lot as atheists because we are brought up religious, and then we discover atheism and we feel like we've been lied to. But it doesn't surprise me that you treated it like a religion, because were you religious before?
Minorly. I was in a family of Christians, and we went to church sometimes.
Yes. Okay. So, throughout your upbringing, you were instilled with a religious structure. And so you took on a new worldview and just applied the foundation that you've been given. It's kind of like if you go to build a shed, right? And you learn how to build a shed, but then you want to build a deck, you're probably going to implement some of the same things that you use to build the shed in order to build the deck, right? And that's kind of what I see happening there. I mean, first of all, you're a young man at that point. So I don't expect you to have a whole lot of not only coping mechanisms and skills in kind of explaining the change, but also enacting those changes in your own life. You're still going to follow pretty old patterns until you kind of get a grasp on other ways of dealing with this kind of newfound enlightenment, if you will. So I wanted to talk about that, and then I have a couple of points. So what is your thought on that so far?
No, I completely agree with most of everything you said.
You went through the
sounds like me when I was younger. Yeah.
Oh, you went through the angry atheist phase. So you said you can make a rational argument about Christ. Rational and true.
Absolutely.
are not the same thing. So if you are thinking rationally, or if something is rational to you, it doesn't mean that it's true. Being rational just means, are you thinking and acting in accordance with the end goal or the values that you have associated with that line of thinking? So for example, this is kind of a, I'll say, sexy thought, line of thought, but I'll introduce it anyway.
Okay.
Are suicide bombers, terrorists, rational? Well, yeah, they are rational, because they think what they're
absolutely
doing.
Not.
No, hold on. Let me explain. So
okay, go ahead, please.
They think what they're doing.
I thought you were asking me. Go ahead.
I know, but so my first, when I was studying these topics, my first instinct was say, oh, of course they're not rational. Hold on, though. They are doing suicide bombing, right? They're taking their own life because they're taught to do that by their own religious leaders, and because they are taught that is how life works for them, that it's something they're supposed to do to please their God. And if they do that, they will please their God and be rewarded. So, it would almost be irrational to be raised to be a suicide bomber and then not carry out the suicide bombing and still expect to be rewarded. Instead, these kids, these young people are brainwashed, right? Often either young people or people who are feeling or experiencing tremendous plight in their life, brainwashed and used as suicide bombers, and they feel as if that plight will be relieved and that Allah will. And of course, I'm talking in the context of Muslim suicide bombers, and I don't. I want to just get the caveat out there, or the disclaimer that I don't think all Muslims are suicide bombers or irrational. I'm just using kind of a line of thinking. So anyway, you may very well be able to make a rational argument for Christ, but it doesn't make it true. Okay, and so I wanted to posit that on you, and see where we're at so far, and see if Scott has anything to say.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to hear Unirock respond first.
Thing?
Yep, please do. Do that now.
Go ahead. Okay, real quick. I believe there is a universal truth, and in becoming the suicide bomber, they violated the universal truth. I believe that's why their religion is man-made and not breathed from God. That's kind of getting into complicated things, so I'll just jump back out. I think it has to follow logic, and all logic comes from Jesus. So, but go ahead, sorry.
Is that an assumption on your part, or do you have evidence for that?
My evidence, it is an assumption from a non-Christian. It's hard for me to talk as an atheist again. I try to sometimes because I want you guys to understand where I'm coming from and know that I'm not judging.
I speak Christian as well too, so feel free.
Yeah, the Bible, what I found is that the Bible and God's word in the Bible is breathed from the creator of everything, God. And that's where, in fact, the beginning of logic, as it says in Proverbs, is the fear of God, or the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. So,
okay, so you mentioned that you thought that the Bible is God breathed and the word from God and that kind of thing. I was waiting for the because part of that sentence. Do you have a because to follow that up?
Yes.
You believe it's the word of God because what?
Because of my experience in reading the Bible. When I became now before I became a Christian, I would have actually agreed with you guys, and I would have said the same thing about the suicide bomber. After becoming a Christian, I think that universal truth it's a real thing, and so I would say that because their Bible, I've read their Bible and I disagreed with it being breathed by God. And after studying as many religions as I could, in fact, that's one thing I did on my YouTube channel early on.
I'm still not hearing a reasoning here. I'm still not hearing any kind of evidence or reasoning or support.
Once you read the Bible with a truly open heart, like you literally pray to God and you say to him, and I did this as an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
I said, listen, I just want to know if you're there. I don't understand why I can't see you and stuff. And so once I prayed to God and I said, show me the truth, he led me immediately to reading the Bible and showed me spiritually that it is his word. So that was
okay. So how did that go? How did he lead you and show you there? So what was he a big guy?
Well, one thing is, oh, sorry, go ahead. I didn't hear that last part.
Yeah, you were saying that you prayed. By the way, I've done that as well. I spent 30 days of sincerely praying and trying to reach out to God. And the ending of my experience was very different than yours. Obviously, I'm still on a atheist show here.
Yeah.
But you said God showed you this. So what?
Yes.
I mean, first of all, you can't come to the conclusion that God showed you anything until you can believe that God exists, right? I mean, if God doesn't exist, then God certainly can't show you anything. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So then, sorry. Let me just finish here. So then, if you say that God showed me something, you're either assuming that God already exists, or there is some characteristic of that experience that provided that evidence. So what kind of? I mean, yeah. Things happen to people. You prayed and you felt a certain way afterwards. I prayed and I felt a different way afterwards. And so that seems weird. If there really was a God, it would seem either kind of a capricious God or maybe the God just doesn't like me and wants me to be an atheist. In that case, I'm doing God's word right now by hosting an atheist show, right? Is that or what?
No.
What made you come to the conclusion that it was God? Pardon?
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Let me describe it here. Now, I didn't assume that God existed or didn't exist, by the way.
Okay. Good.
Before this happened. I was an atheist just in an actual, logical and real pursuit to find out whether God existed or not, knowing that if God did exist, he would have left a way for me to find him. And if God didn't exist, there wouldn't be. So maybe I jumped too far ahead by telling you that I prayed and these things happened, because it is extreme to hear, because it's supernatural. Let me explain.
So if that's the case, let's back up a little bit. Let's back up in your causal chain there. And what I'm asking about is what happened, or what did you discover, or what did you read, or what did you imagine, or what happened that made you think, oh, there really is a God?
Well, for one, it's logic. It's a logical concurrence that God does exist.
I totally disagree with that.
No, that's not the answer to the question. Unirock, that's not the answer. Come on.
I know. You are asking me what happened to me, though. So I'm not telling you that's what happened to everybody.
Yeah, but instead of answering the question, you're telling us that it's logical to believe in God.
It is.
Hold on one second.
It is. You may not, but.
Hold on one sec. So we all feel like we are doing things logically, and we are coming to conclusions logically. And I want to address a point you made. You feel that what you do through the lens of Christianity is logic, and you have reasonably landed on God. But guess what? So do those Muslims, and so do those suicide bombers. So while you say, well, they have violated the universal laws because they didn't follow a religion that was truly breathed from God. Guess what? They actually believe the same way that you believe, that their religion was from God, and you're actually the one that's incorrect. And that Christians are the ones that got it wrong. And so that's a good segue to say, all right, which one's correct? And you have evidence of that, right?
And before I just want to slip this in before you continue, Unirock. I'm first of all, thank you for calling. I think your call is really very interesting, and I really appreciate your attitude and your willingness to have a two-way conversation. You said that logic leads you to God. Okay, so when I ask you what's your evidence and reasoning for God, the logic, that's what I'm asking about. Okay, so it would be like if I just came in and said, oh, I have a really great argument to support the fact that there is no God. And then I just walk away and you're like, what? What's the reasoning? Oh, I would just have to tell you my argument, and then you'd believe me, and then I walk away, right? So when you say logic led you to God, that's what I'm looking for. That's the part that I want. What was the logical chain that led you to that conclusion? Tell me the logic. Don't just say that the logic exists. Show me the money. Show me your work.
Yeah. Okay. You remember earlier when I said that I can make a logical argument for Christ or God?
You said rational.
Right? I said that earlier. Yeah, well, rational and logical. I'll go ahead and insert logical too, if it helps. But sorry, I'm going up a hill. So what
that's for sure. But I love it. I'd love to see you try.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I apologize. I interrupted you again. Sorry. Continue. I'll shut up.
I know, and it's my phone. I really do. If I was in on my computer, it would be a lot better. I'll have to call you from that sometime if that's okay. So, in the future. It's not going to be an easy thing to communicate to you.
Just do it. Just try it.
Working since I became a Christian. Sorry?
If it works for you, if it works in your mind, that's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. I want to know how you followed the logic.
Communicate it to you.
Do it.
But
it'll
take time, and you'll have to have an open mind with me. I don't think
I have an open mind.
It's not that I know you do. So it'll take time, though. It's something that I can't just throw at you right now in 30 seconds. It would take me like 5 minutes, and I don't want to bogart the other callers or your show.
How about let's do this? Can you summarize it? Can you summarize the logical argument? Can you, if you can summarize it, then maybe we would agree with most of it. Maybe we would agree with most of it, and we wouldn't have to spend all that much time. Just give us the broad strokes of your logical approach to come to this conclusion.
I will, but I'm asking you as a person not to judge me until
we haven't done that yet,
and I will be very cool about it until I feel like I gave you a good argument, because I'm a horrible communicator, and I don't want to mess up.
Just do it. And just do it. Lay it on us.
Understand?
Give it to us.
So first off, the easiest way is to tell you that when I went to reading the Bible after, where were we? After I had prayed with an open and earnest heart, and again, this wasn't just me sitting down. Like you said, it took you a long time.
Stop.
30 days.
Continue.
Of doing it.
Stop adding justifications, right? Stop adding extra descriptors.
No, I am.
Okay.
I don't know why you're getting mad, but
I'm not.
The point is, though, it was supernatural. It was something supernatural happened. Would you say that Christ, if Christ died on the cross and was resurrected, that would be supernatural, correct?
Okay, what you're doing right now is not at all logical. Okay,
no,
you said that logic led you to God. I want to know about that. If there's surrounding discussion, I want to set that aside for now.
Okay.
I'm a math guy, right? I want to see the numbers. I want to see the working. I want you to show me the logical steps that you took to get to a God. And it should not include questions, by the way.
What is it?
I'm sorry. I just want to know the logical chain. I don't want to know the surrounding discussion. I just want to just cut to the chase.
Sure. Okay. The best way I can say it, I have a theory called the aquarium theory that I think best describes it. So draw on in your mind an aquarium, which is just a rectangle. And then to the side of the rectangle, imagine you've got a bag of sand, but inside the bag of sand, it's just a bunch of hydrogen particles or whatever the base particle is. You're going to dump it in to the aquarium. God is, in my opinion, the easiest way to see it, the thing that pulls everything together that we call gravity here. And let me finish. The reason I say that is because I believe that the base state of reality is nothingness. I don't believe that the base state of reality is a universe that spawned out of the small point. A lot of people say this universe is
singularity,
nothingness, or the base state of reality. I apologize. I don't believe that. I think nothingness is. So in order for, and of course it's a very simple thing that gets complicated later. If there was no God, I believe that those hydrogen particles in the aquarium would have just bounced infinitely. I don't think that things pulling together in such a precise way from the micro level to the macro level is a random occurrence. If that's the best way to say.
You don't understand how gravity works, therefore
no,
God. Okay, but you just said that
how gravity works.
Okay,
The force of gravity existing itself. It's such a perfect force to be able to pull everything at a micro level and a macro level together. Universes, and then everything that, the universe down to planets, down to, if I went on the train and wasted your time.
I'm sorry, Unirock, I have no idea what we're talking about. We're kind of all over the place.
Okay, I didn't think you would, and that's why I said it takes time.
Listen.
I'll link you a video sometime later that.
No, I mean, I don't know why you would need all that. I feel like I believe that China is a real place. And here's how I can explain it to you. We have photographical evidence, and I know that there are planes that can travel there. I know that we can measure the distance to China. I know, that if you fly a certain altitude at a certain speed, that you will arrive there. And I've seen it. I've flown over it. Boom. There you go. That makes sense to me. I mean, but I don't know why when it comes to God, people say, well, I have this argument that'll convince you. And then we go off on these just side. Now we're talking about gravity and hydrogen in a fish tank. And I'm not so sure that this argument is all that well thought out. And look, I wasn't mad at you. I think you're great. I think the call is great. I'm really happy to have this discussion, but your argument for God is neither rational nor logical,
nor really an argument,
nor is it an argument, right? Right.
Yeah. So, Unirock, I appreciate your call. I think we're gonna wrap this one up, and we do have other callers on the lines, but I want to encourage you to explore that aspect that we were, that we were asking about the. See if you can maybe phrase it into a more logical approach and to, have premises, have logical consequences that result from those premises. And then at the end, it says, therefore, God exists. And so maybe I would love it if you called back. Excuse me. I'd love it if you'd call back and we could have a better discussion with that. But, what you're giving us right now is really, it really didn't have anything to do with logic. You said you had a lot of I believes in there and that kind of thing. And as Jimmy pointed out, you're clearly trying to impose a mind frame, a mindset from an earlier set of belief onto the situation when we were talking about religion, right? You've heard the saying that if you're really good at a hammer, if all you have is hammer, then every problem looks like a nail, right? And so it's good that your beliefs can adapt, but you should also be wary of where you're coming from and that kind of thing. But I would love to hear that logical argument at some point, but it sounds to me like you're just not ready to present it. And that's not necessarily a judgment on you. I'd love it if you'd be interested in spending a little bit of time thinking about that and maybe calling us back. Do you think that would be something that would be interesting to you too?
Call you back.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Unirock. Thank you very much for the call.
Yeah. And thank you for your service.
Good meeting you. God bless.
All right.
Hey,
nice meeting you.
Have a good one.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. All right. Good. Well, we do have other callers, but I do have a few announcements that I want to get in here. First of all, one way to support us is by sending us super chats. We have one super chat on in the queue right now, which, Jimmy, that just tells me nobody wants to hear your gnome voice, which is, I don't know, it's kind of bumming me out here a little bit.
That's
so
sad.
if you want to hear Jim Jammer Jr. talking about, gnome stuff, we need to have those super chats. So please do that if you are able and so inclined. We would love that. Also, if you're in the Austin area, you can follow us on Meetup to keep up with community events. You can see what's going on at tiny.cc/ACA meetup. Things like Philosophy Under the Stars, which I'm really jealous. I would love to participate in that at some point. Game nights, I'm also a big gamer. I love that, and more, and more. So you can do that at tiny.cc/ACA meetup. You can also join our weekly watch parties at the Free Thought Library. The Free Thought Library, I've been there a couple of times. It's a super cool place, and you can just hang out and you can watch the shows and get to know some really cool people. And there's lots of cool taco places and stuff nearby, and it's just an awesome place to be. So that takes place at the live viewings of Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience every Sunday. The doors open at noon, and it's a great place for building community. And lastly, you can follow us on Talk Heathen on TikTok. Talk Heathen and join us for our pre-show lives at the ACA TikTok Atheist Community of Austin. And there was actually one other announcement that I wanted to slip in here, and that is a fellow host of ours on the ACA show, Secular Rarity, is involved in a new organization they're starting up. It's called Socializing US, and they are holding a kind of an opening day fundraiser, and that's going to be taking place tomorrow, March 30th. I believe it's at 5:30 Central Time. And it's on YouTube. So if you go onto YouTube, just look for Secular Rising and it'll pop right up. And I would encourage you to take a look at it. To watch it is free. But if you are so inclined, then you can donate to help get that organization up and running. They're going to be dedicated to helping build atheist communities and secular communities throughout the U.S. So please keep that in mind. I don't know, Jimmy, you want to go into our next call here?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do that. So our next caller is Jim. Jim is a deist from Florida. Jim says that media drives faith and helped me move to deism. Things like the Da Vinci Code helped get out of Christianity, along with God is not great. I'm assuming that's a reference to the late, great Christopher Hitchens. Jim, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right, what's on your mind today, Jim?
Well, I started off in one perspective, but that 40-minute was brutal. So if I can maybe comment a couple things from
Sure.
the last caller is if I can move, like history dictates the direction of faith. So he needs to do his research, to look at the Nicene Council and understand how Christianity was formed. And the other thing is, if he wants to, and if you want to dictate the direction of Scripture and the what's going on in the Middle East, research al-Nakba and understand what happened in Palestine 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and understand the direction of what happened and see what's happening now. So I'm going to leave it on that.
Okay.
That's my political reference. Okay. But where I'm at is where I wanted to talk about is, so I live in a community, which is kind of interesting. So I live in like a community which we have the home base of Scientology in my pocket. And so I ride my bike down this trail, which is an amazing trail, Pinellas Trail. It goes about 60 miles. And you go past these humongous buildings, and every day you see, you ride past it, and you see droves of buses with people that get out of these buses. And so I am taking a different direction. So I'm sorry, but so, and so it's just, it's mind-boggling for me. So I stop and I talk to people, and I want to engage in conversations. And,
Okay.
And I'm a deist, so I do believe that there is a greater power, an unexplainable power. So I get it. You guys are going to challenge me on what that looks like or whatever. anyways, that's where I'm at. But
okay, so when you said that, so in the notes here, it says that media drove your, it drives faith and it helped you move to deism. So did you move to deism from atheism or from a theistic perspective?
From theistic perspective, I was raised Orthodox, very much, and then my love of my life was Catholic, and she went through a terrible situation in Catholicism, where they did not accept her, and she wanted to get out of it, and they kept on asking her to pray harder, and she couldn't do it enough, so she got an annulment after she got the shit beat out of her, so for me, I was raised Greek Orthodox. Her and I connected. We went on a kind of a pilgrimage for 2 years, and at the same time, what I'm trying to say is, like, media kind of helped me to bridge that gap. I read the Da Vinci Code, and I understand that, like, he is not necessarily atheist, or he had a perspective that shed some light on things that made me, like.
You're talking about Dan Brown, the author?
Dan Brown, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Dan Brown, and so let me fast forward. So fast forward, I'm now
hold on. All right, hold on. So I'm sorry, Scott. I'm sorry. So all right. You were with somebody who you met her, and she had previously had an experience with the church, and they rejected her. Okay. Right. And then you met her and got together. Right.
Yes, Jimmy.
Okay. And then you read a fictional book, and that helped you out of religion.
I
want to bounce your idea off you. The way it sounds to me, and I'm not trying to be rude.
It did not help. Listen,
you met somebody who was a non-believer, and then you put your religion behind you.
She was agnostic.
Okay, agnostic, but I kind of feel like there's some outside influence. Hold on. I find it. I just kind of feel like there's a little bit of outside influence that helped you along, and not just the media. But I mean, you dedicated your life to a woman who was a non-believer, and that, I think, in you also following the same route that she did is significant. And I want to also add that, Jim, you are not alone in your journey, because so many people are my buddy backstage, Kelly Laughlin. I could speak on his behalf. Myself, when we came out of Christianity, we found these other religions that were less Christian, right? Kelly started exploring Eastern religions. I claimed to be a Taoist for a little while. I think that a lot of people come out of their religion and they find something a little bit less dogmatic until they've kind of taken the final step to call themselves an atheist, right? And so I'm not saying that you are going to eventually call yourself an atheist, but obviously you had an experience, or your circumstances changed into which you didn't see any credibility in the dogma that you were brought up, and so you shedded that for something else that was a little bit less dogmatic. That's not all that unique. I mean, that's actually pretty common. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Jim. And please, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but we're kind of beating around the bush here, and I kind of wanted to sink my teeth into something. And I feel like what you're sharing with us is significant because it's a common story.
Well, okay, can I talk now? Or, like, I understand it's common story, and I understand the way that you want to ride with this is like mine. so we're all agnostic, and Jimmy and Scott, if you guys are telling me that you're not agnostic, atheists, then you're full of shit. I'm sorry, but you are.
I didn't tell you that. Nobody said that.
I'm an agnostic deist because none of us freaking know what is going on. And like you shut me down, and you didn't allow me to finish my excursion. So what happened was that was 20 years ago with her. Since then, I went through a path of Unitarian. I wanted to find a God. I wanted to find a connection. Okay, and then I started to listen and read and find out more about things from an atheist perspective, from a deist perspective, a theist perspective, and even a trans theist perspective, all around. And so when you have people talking here, and I get it, it's easy to say atheist, deist, theist. Show us the proof. I don't have proof. Nobody has proof. This is not the way that the world is going to be. But like my perspective is there is 38% of the population right now who is deist. And I guarantee it. You guys can say you don't know what I'm talking about. But here's where I roll with this. Is I'm going down the road and I see Scientologists and I see people converting Christians, converting people. It's a freaking war of religion. And
okay, Jim, I want to interrupt here, and I apologize. I think we're getting off track here. I think Jimmy was engaging what you were talking about. Please give me a minute here. We gave you lots of time to talk, but Jimmy was engaging what you were saying. Okay, he was saying that he's familiar with this type of pattern. This is actually fairly common. People start off with religion. They find questionable things in the texts or in people or in the policies or in the tenets and that kind of thing. So maybe they dial it back a little bit, maybe becoming a deist, maybe becoming a Unitarian, maybe switching to a more liberal approach to their religion, a little bit less extremist and that kind of thing. And so, but you also said that you were wanting to find a God. And so I feel like I need to mention that. I mean, that's going to affect your whole approach. What we're interested in, and you kind of called us out at the beginning, and I think you called it correctly, is that when you said that you're a deist and you believe that there's a creator, yeah, we want to know why you believe that. And I'm not saying that I'm asking for a hardcore proof, but what we want to know is your belief reasonable? Is it based off of any kind of evidence, or is it just based off of emotional responses? Being confident that something is true is an emotional response. Confidence is an emotion, and it affects it works itself out in your brain the same way as things like anger and the things like love and anything that can be classified as an emotion. And so as we all know, anybody who's gotten up in the morning and hasn't had their coffee yet, people can get angry for bad reasons. We know that people can be happy for bad reasons. We know that people can be sad for bad reasons. We also know that people can be confident of certain things for bad reasons. Okay. And so at the beginning of the show in the cold open, right, I was talking about the importance of having solid basis for your beliefs. And so if you're telling me that you think it's okay to believe things without a good reason, then I will point to that cold open and I'll say, but then you're at the risk of committing atrocities. If your belief isn't soundly based on reality, then your actions will not accurately reflect your intentions, because you'll be interacting wrong. If you use the wrong manual to repair your computer, it's not going to work, because that manual is not based off of your computer, right? And so if you're saying that you just believe anyway, and then you live your life, that's fine. You might point at the Scientologists, you might point at the Orthodox people, you might point at various religions and say, look at these terrible things that these people are doing. They're taking it too far. Well, you need to be able to consider, to look back at yourself, do a little self-reflection. Am I taking it too far as well? If you're telling me you believe there's a creator and you're starting from there, then we could have a problem, because if that is an absurdity, if that turns out to actually be not correct, then any beliefs or any actions that you build based off of that belief could be disastrous. And so please, can you step us through how you get to that point? We know that you started out religious and you kind of dialed it back to deism. And I think that's a step in the right direction, at least, to quote a good friend of mine, Cynthia McDonald. But I want to see, how do you get to that point, right? You don't need to give me a cut and dry proof. I want to know, is your belief in a creator based on reasons, or is it based on your feelings? If it's based on reasons, what are those reasons? And if it's based on feelings, then why shouldn't we disregard your belief, just like you did with the other religions?
Can I talk now? Okay.
Were you just waiting to talk? I was hoping that you'd be listening to what I said and then could respond to it. Is that what you plan on doing?
Well, I've been trying to talk and interject, but my point was, when you said there was a creator, I never said that my God was a creator. So my God is agnostic theos. My God is a deist perspective. So what you're saying is, you're trying to dictate my God in a definition, and that's not where I'm at.
Oh, there. And then explain it. Well, then what's your God? What is your God? If it's not a is it a being? Is it a person? Does it have a personality?
It's agnostic theos. Do you not know the 13th God? Do you not know that there's a higher power?
Why would we know that? Why would we know that? And why should we?
It's a Spinoza. It's an Einsteinian. It's a Spinoza. It's a power that we do not yet understand. And I get it that it gives you guys comfort to go back and forth with Christians and be able to.
That's an ad hominem. That's an ad hominem. It doesn't matter whether or not we're comfortable, and don't imply intentions on our part, and we won't do the same for you.
And you know what, Jim? I just want to point out, I'm sorry that you feel like I shut you down, but you started this call by shutting down the previous caller, who is not even here to defend himself. You came on and belittled him because he didn't do the kind of research allegedly that you had done. Maybe he has. And then you put down Catholicism and Greek Orthodoxy and the Scientologists, and you act as if you have a better understanding, and we are asking you to make us understand, and you're not giving it to us. So where do you get the right to put anybody down if what you're doing is no better than what anybody else is doing when it comes to their religion?
Maybe we should just start out with the original question then. What is your God, and why do you believe it's real?
I told you, my God is a agnostic theos. It's
I don't know what that is.
God.
Yeah, using a different word other than God is not a way of explaining things. That would be like if I wanted to explain to you what a splorg is, and I say, well, a splorg is a kind of a derf. That doesn't make any sense, right? So explain it. Give us an explanation, not just a synonym.
Well, this is the reality of what the higher power will be, and I get that you guys.
Are you not going to address the question I just asked you? Are you not going? You're not going to describe what your God is?
My God is a life force. It's the life force of the cosmos of humanity, and so it's a deistic approach of the way that it's this Spinozian approach, and this is the way that.
How do you know that God is out there if it doesn't interact with us?
Because it interacts with us every day.
So then it's not deist. So then it's not deist, right?
I told you, it's a deist, it's a pantheist, it's a deism, it's a pantheist.
Those aren't.
It's a Spinoza approach. And
remind me on Spinoza.
Like, what?
Just remind me on Spinoza again.
Remind you of Spinoza.
We just want an explanation. What the heck is your God? I mean, just quit just giving different words for it. Explain what it is. You said life force. Let's go on that. Is it like gravity, or is it electricity, or is it, the forces between subatomic particles? What do you mean by universal life force?
Scott, how old are you?
I'm 56.
Okay. So in the world, like, listen, I mean, one of my favorite people to listen to, which you guys will listen to, is Hitchens. And I listen to him, and I read and I listen to God Is Not Great. And listen, you guys are like those. There's powerful messages and these men that have challenged the status quo, and so mine is a different doctrine. I mean, I believe that there is a power out there that we don't yet understand, and I'm sorry. And
so is your answer no? You're not going to explain to me what God is?
God, I know that the talkie that I get it. You slam.
Don't attack us.
I didn't slam anything. The phrase I just uttered has a question mark at the end of it.
It's not a comfortable thing to say. It's not as easy as like slamming down, like going like, hey, listen, just read the Nicene Creed. Like you can get out.
Okay, well, let me suggest something. Let me propose something here. I understand that you probably have some thoughts and emotions and feelings around this topic, and maybe have a difficulty in expressing those topics. Perhaps you even in the past have learned that when other people try to describe those feelings and those beliefs, that they use certain words to describe them. Okay, and so when I hear somebody and to be honest, to be straight with you here, Jim, you're really beating around the bush. You're like dancing around the answer to the question. And I'm not saying that you're intentionally being obstructionist or anything like that. You could be doing the best that you can to try to explain something that you have difficulty putting into words, and that's fine. And I don't mean to judge you. And if I'm getting short with you, I apologize. It's merely out of frustration and, to be honest, curiosity on my part. But if you can't explain what you're talking about, then it's hard for us to take you seriously that you're talking about something, especially because what you're doing then is you're assigning beingness. You're saying a life force in the universe, the life force of humanity, but you're unable to describe what that is. And so to me, it sounds like you're doing the best you can to explain some feeling and thought process in your mind and having difficulty finding the words. Do you think that would be fair judgment on my part? Do you think I'm being fair to you when I say that?
Yes, Scott. Yes.
Okay, so I want to also suggest then, I want to suggest two other things. Go ahead.
There is not a faith. Deism does not have a structure to it. My thought process of the agnostic theist of like, we do not know because we're so small in the world. And if you guys do, then congratulations. If you guys have found this out, then more power to you. But I don't know.
There's really no need for that kind of that. It seems like an ad hominem attack. You're kind of just like throwing backhanded insults at us, like congratulations, you figured it out. We're not making any claims here, Jim. We're not saying that we figured out anything. We're asking you what you figured out and how you figured it out, and we're not getting an answer. And that's where we're at.
Can you see it from our perspective? We're trying to, I mean, we the whole purpose of having the show is to discuss this kind of thing. So I'm going to thank you as well. I find this call interesting in regards to learning. One of the things that I really like about being on the show is I like to learn about how other people view things and how other people think about things. And I said before that to me, it looks like you're struggling with some things that you're having difficulty to put into words, and you agreed with me. And I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That you know, I'm not saying that you're being a bad person. I'm not even saying that you are being lazy or taking shortcuts or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that if you then take those unsure feelings and those unsure thoughts, and if you put a label on them that that you can't justify applying it, then that's when you run into those risks. That's what these other religions are doing. They're doing the same thing that you're doing. They're taking the feelings that they felt. Maybe, the majority of religious people were raised in a religious household. And so they are trained to think along these lines. And so if you want to criticize that they're doing the same thing, then you really need to look at yourself too. Look at that person in the mirror and ask yourself, am I justified in making these claims? I'm perfectly happy with somebody telling me, I have these feelings when I think about the universe, it makes me feel comfortable and safe if I look at it this way, or it makes me feel like I'm on top of things if I can say agnosos theos, or whatever the term that you used, or Spinoza's God, or things like that. But please understand that those are really vague terms, and using them when they're not when they shouldn't be applied can be dangerous. If you're implying that God is a force, well, we do know that there are forces in the universe. It doesn't make really sense to call any of them God, because when people think about God, they think of a person, somebody that can talk. They think about something that can do things, that can take action, that can, to borrow a phrase from Daniel Dennett, that can take the intentional stance, right? That can enact things in the world. And so, to me, it looks like you're just overstating your case. I'm not judging your beliefs in this case. What I'm judging here, what I'm criticizing here, is what you do, what you say based off of those beliefs. And so if you're going to take the extra step and say that it's God, then it's one thing if you're doing that because it helps you to feel comfortable and safe inside, or if it feels right, if it clicks in your mind, if it makes sense to you when you say that, that's one thing. But at the very bottom of it, if you have that much difficulty explaining what you're talking about, then it makes more sense to me to just say, I have these feelings, I can't really explain, what they entail, and then leave it at that. Do you think that would be a more reasonable approach? Or based off of what I just said, do you still think that the extra steps that you've taken are justified?
Yes.
Okay, let's hear the justification then. Then that's what we wanted. That's the meat that we want here. We've had the salad. We've had the, we've eaten, we've filled up on bread, but I saved a little room for the steak. So I want to know the justification behind that.
Well, again, this is the crux of it. If you're a deist, then the deism approach is not a personal God, and you keep on talking about a creator, and I've never ever said that my power is a creator. That
right, but that's not what I said. I said when you use those words, that's what other people will think.
You used it, Scott. You used that.
You used the words force, and you used
God.
You said Spinoza's God.
Yep.
I never said a creator. You use the term of a creator as because.
So it's my fault you couldn't explain your beliefs.
I've tried to explain my belief in
I disagree.
a very calm manner, but I get it that it's not the one that is a theist versus atheist approach, and
you know why?
It's a very different approach.
You know what, Jim? You actually get the upper hand in a situation like this because you've taken the lazy approach to having to explain what it is you believe in. So when you were a Christian and you had to justify those horrible and ridiculous beliefs, it was almost impossible. Nobody can actually justify them and make them make sense. But when you take the approach that you're taking, which requires really no explanation, you actually are in a better position because there's less crap that we have to digest. But you still are held to the same standard. You still need to tell us, what is the God? How do you know that it's out there? You got rid of the dogma. You got rid of all the laws, the books. You got rid of the contradictions. You got rid of the things that are so horrific that nobody in their right mind can actually be a good person and still believe in things like slavery and things like incest and things like child sexual abuse. Those things are all called for in Christianity. But you threw away the Bible and just said, well, I'm going to believe in this thing I can't define. That way I'm not held to any standard and I can just say whatever I want. And that's what you're doing right now. You're copping out big time. We are giving you a platform. We have this opportunity here for you to call the show. And instead, what you're doing is you're attacking us personally, with these really snarky remarks about, I know it's easy for you to just slam people. It really is unfair. Stop wasting our time and tell us what your God is and how you know it's out there.
So I've already explained this to you.
You have not explained a single damn thing to us.
Not only have you not explained it, but you've already admitted that you can't explain it. Right?
Well, again.
Yes, it's okay to admit that.
I know. Listen, I appreciate you guys' conversation. I know that I can't. I know that the known voice, someone just said I have a known voice, but
no, it's not. You don't even know what you're talking about.
That wasn't for you. That wasn't about you.
But
this is great.
Anyways, I appreciate. I want to have some banter. I want to be able to express myself. And listen, you guys, I appreciate the time. And I'm sorry, Jimmy and Scott. And yes, I do not have.
Okay,
Jim, get off your high horse the next time you call us, and come with some actual talking points.
Well, I think Jim, I'll give you a little bit of credit here. I can tell that you're struggling with some things that are going on in your mind, and if they're difficult to explain, then that's fine. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to explain things. And to be honest, I think the discussion that you've just had with the two of us can help you to clarify some areas where you're not sure. And I think it's okay to be not sure. It's okay to have feelings like that, especially if you were raised religious. There's going to be some things, your brain develops, during the first 20, 25 years of your life. And sometimes there's things that get in there that are hard to reverse. Some people spend years and tons of money to try to fix things from their childhood, and whether or not you want to call it trauma, it's a separate issue, but it's just a part of your life that was part of your childhood. And so it's okay to just say, I have these thoughts and this inclination and this desire to believe this way. What I'm saying is that that's fine. Just don't overstate your conclusions. Okay. J. Mike taught me a great phrase, and that is, he's saying underdetermined. What that means is that when something is underdetermined, that means it's not been justified to the point that you're claiming it's justified. Maybe it's not. You can't figure out exactly what category something should be in, then don't pretend that you know what category something should be in. If you're not sure what your God is, then if you continue to call it a God, people are going to make assumptions about what you're talking about, because people have an idea of what God means. When we have a discussion about God, we're usually talking about, like I said, about people and that kind of thing. I understand that that's not what you meant. I'm not trying to imply that you meant to say it was a creator. But what I'm saying is that if you use the word like God, and if you say that there is a life force, there is this, there is that other thing, then people are going to make assumptions about what you mean. And if you mean to imply a sense of confusion or seeking or vagueness or that kind of thing, then just say that and be done with it. And if you overstate things, then people are going to make the wrong assumptions. And so I want to thank you again for calling. I think we're going to wrap the call here. We do have a couple other things that we want to do at the end of the show here. I want to thank you a lot for calling. I really love these kinds of conversations. And to me, it's just fascinating. I consider myself to be a student of the human condition of humanity. And so I just love listening and trying to figure out how people work. And so in that regard, Jim, I thought your call was awesome, and I really enjoyed this conversation. But I would suggest that think about the things that we suggested. I'm not saying we're right and you're wrong. I'm not saying that we know what we're talking about and you don't. I'm just saying, we'll listen to your perspective. Now, give us the courtesy of listening to our perspective as well. I'm not implying that you didn't do that. But then maybe give us a call back at some other time, and maybe we can start getting down into some of these details. Spend a little bit of time thinking about this God. If you can't name it, or if you can't explain it, or you can't describe its characteristics, then maybe it's not a thing in the way that you think it's a thing. And I'll give you the last word here. We'll give you 10, 15 seconds. Do you have any last comments before we wrap this call up?
No, Scott and Jimmy, thank you so much for your perspectives, and I appreciate it. And yeah, absolutely. And again, my perception of a higher power is an unknown.
Okay.
So there, it's funny. You guys can. It does not dictate a direction. It's something that we won't find out today, tomorrow, in 1,000 years, in 1,000,000 years, or possibly. So that's where I'm at, and I'm sorry that I don't have a name for it.
You don't need to apologize, Jim. We all struggle with things. We all try to figure life out. We all try to figure out things in that we see in front of us. But we appreciate your call, and so I'm going to hang up now. But hopefully we can talk again some other time. So thank you so much. All right, Jimmy, we do have a little bit of business here we need to take care of before we wrap the show. Jimmy, would you care to bring up our top 5 patrons for this week?
Oh, of course I could do the top 5 patrons.
Awesome,
I love the
awesome.
top 5 patrons. So this week, all singularity at number 1. Number 2, Dingleberry Jackson. Number 3, Kalevi Helveti. Number 4, Brian Zupke. Number 5, J.A. Calton. And an honorable mention to David Cross. Thank you, everybody who gives to us on Patreon. And if you want to have your name read and on the air, please consider supporting us at tiny.cc/PatreonTH. And I will be on the Discord after show today. Kelly will be there. Scott, I understand you're joining for a little while. So
yep, I'll be there for a little bit. Yep.
Yeah. So everybody, don't forget, we have started recording that. And so that's available on Patreon as well. So join us today.
All right. And don't forget that the prompt for the Talk Heathen to Me for next week is, what exactly did God think Adam needed help with? And so reply in the comments below this video, not in the live chat, although you could do both if you want. But if you want to be considered to be read on the show, make sure it ends up in the comments below, and we'll read those at the beginning of next week's show. So let's bring Kelly on here. I want to read off these. We do have a few super chats here, and we may have hit our goal. I don't know. We'll see. So our first super chat here is from Infidel64 for $5. Infidel said, it's logical to watch the nonprofits. I would have to. Kelly, what do you think? You're actually, all three of us are nonprofits hosts. Yeah.
I was going to say that while I was sitting back waiting for something to happen, and nothing did, but I realized that all three of us were on the nonprofits together. The nonprofits, the flagship show of the ACA. Of course, we all know that I am the best host over there.
Yeah, that's right.
Of course, that goes without saying.
So everybody should watch the nonprofits more. It's really probably the most socially relevant show that the ACA produces.
Definitely. I agree. And I've been on the nonprofits for several years, and I really enjoy being on it. And I think it's a really cool thing to watch. Our next super chat comes from also a ubiquitous member of our shows here, Miranda Rensberger, member from 1 year, gave us $10 and said, today's callers are so inept at making a point that I can't even come up with a snarky super chat response to them. But I do want to hear Jimmy, the Jimmy Gnome voice. And I think, Miranda, I think that was actually a self-contradicting statement, because in saying that you couldn't be snarky, you had plenty of snark there. There's plenty of snark. So good job on that. I love that kind of stuff. I actually wrote a paper on paradoxes for a master's thesis 1 year. Next up, we have Truth 666, also a member for 1 year, for $10, said what Miranda said. Ditto. All right. So that must be another call for the Jimmy Gnome voice. And then we have another one from Miranda Rensberger. I think they saw the writing on the wall, and that we might not get that Jimmy voice, but Miranda gave us another $25 saying, okay, wow, just give us the gnome voice, please. I'm sure it will have more substance than anything we've heard in calls today. And again, with a little bit of snark there. So I love that. And lastly, we have from Eli Slack, also on the nonprofits. Eli gave us $5 saying Jim's God is, and then squints eyes, the concept of agnosticism. Okay. So anyway, thank you so much. I think that brings us over our $50 goal. Yeah. So I want to thank all of you that donated. Crew, hit us with the Jimmy Gnome voice.
What in the name of 9 thunderous hells do you want? I'm a busy gnome, you know. Got more important things to do than entertain a bunch of starry-eyed adventurers with death wishes. Tanjira's a good friend, so I'm doing this as a favor to her. But make no mistake, if you so much as breathe on one of my inventions, I'll zap you straight out of here faster than a lightning bolt on a hot summer's day. There's your ticket to hell. Step into the circle and I'll do the rest. But for the love of gears and grease, don't touch anything. The last thing I need is some fool setting off a chain reaction in here. Well? What in the name of
They took off the last little part there. That's okay. We can stop that.
We can stop.
So, Jimmy, why don't you give us the last little bit that got clipped off there?
I don't remember that. Well, what are you waiting for? I have no idea.
All right. That's fair enough. Fair enough. I remember when you first sent me that. I was literally rolling on the floor laughing. I thought that was the best thing, the best addition to that D&D campaign to date. And so that was really awesome. I really appreciate everybody who's participated in the game.
I'm gonna admit, with my huge ego, that you actually did a better character than I did.
Kelly did one as well. Yeah,
I did. I was the second best, though.
Definitely. Maybe we can do that on another show when maybe on Truth Wanted or something. We can show Kelly's audio there as well.
Today was a good show. I liked our calls, and I hope that they call back. I don't take kindly to callers calling and slamming down callers before them,
right.
And then kind of being a little bit backhanded to us. There's really no place for it. There's no need.
Right.
But I appreciate the maturity from both of our callers. We didn't see things the same at the end, and maybe there's
that's okay.
There's an opportunity for more discussion.
Exactly. So let's throw some love rings out there real quick here. All right, Kelly with the love right there, as always, because everybody loves Kelly. All right, don't forget to come to the ACD after the show. Kelly and Jimmy are going to be there. I'll be there for a little bit. That's at tiny.cc/ACD Discord. And lastly, just remember, if you don't believe, this is your community, and we appreciate you being here. If you do believe, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced.
Right.
We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Friday at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.